Some people carry a kindness like an eternal flame, quiet, steady, and unwavering in a world dimmed by cynicism. You know exactly the kind of person I'm talking about. Maybe you even see yourself in them, the friend who shows up when no one else does, the co-worker who quietly steps in without being asked, the one whose heart beats in sync with the needs of others. These people care deeply, feel intensely, and love so sincerely that it often feels like they're giving themselves away, piece by piece. But here's the unsettling truth that sneaks into their quietest moments. Why, despite giving so much, do they often feel so profoundly alone? Is it simply the price of a generous spirit? Or could this ache point to a deeper lesson? Life is trying, gently but firmly, to teach. To understand it fully, picture someone like Maya. She's the friend who brings soup when you're sick, remembers the smallest things you've said, and shows up in the pouring rain to help you move. She listens with her full heart. She gives without keeping score. But when she's the one falling apart, when her world turns grey, there's only silence. Her calls go unanswered. Her pain is met with distance. The same empathy she so freely gives is nowhere to be found when she needs it most. This silence isn't just absence, it's neglect, a sharp ache that cuts deeper than cruelty, because it comes from people she trusted to care. And the heartbreaking part? Maya isn't rare. She's everywhere. Maybe she's someone you know. Maybe she's you. If you've ever felt unseen in your giving, you're not alone. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you been in Maya's shoes? I read and appreciate every story. And if this message already resonates with you, go ahead and subscribe. There's more to come, just for souls like yours. In a world that often rewards noise over nuance, quiet kindness fades into the background. It becomes assumed, expected, invisible. That's why learning to protect your heart isn't just helpful, it's vital. The Stoics knew this well. They weren't emotionless, they were intentional. They valued virtue, yes, but also self-respect and inner balance. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be one." But buried in that wisdom is a powerful reminder. Being good doesn't mean being used. Being kind does not mean losing yourself. Kindness is a sacred resource. And like any precious resource, it must be tended, not depleted. Imagine your kindness as a garden. You wouldn't scatter your seeds into barren soil. You'd plant them where they can thrive, where your care is nourished, not drained. The same is true for relationships. When you understand your worth, you stop giving endlessly to those who only take. You become intentional with your energy, selective with your presence, and in doing so, you create room for deeper, more meaningful connection. Not just more relationships, but the right ones. Because here's the truth, genuinely kind people are never truly alone. They're just waiting, quietly, patiently, for those rare souls who see kindness not as weakness, but as one of the most powerful forces in the world. The weight of kindness. The burden of kindness is subtle but real, both a quiet ache and a hidden strength. It's the kind of weight that doesn't announce itself, yet it's carried every day by those who choose empathy in a world that often rewards indifference. Think of someone like Daniel. He's the one who stays late to help, not for recognition, but because it's the right thing to do. He notices when someone is off and reaches out, not to fix, but simply to care. He asks for little, Just a moment of sincerity, a quiet nod, a simple thank you. But more often than not, he's met with silence. Silence in meetings, silence from friends, silence from the very world he supports. And this silence isn't harmless. It creates space where loneliness grows, quietly, invisibly. Daniel, like many who live by inner values, may not voice this ache, but he feels it, deeply. Still, let's be clear, the desire to be seen and valued is not a weakness. It's a human truth. Even the Stoics, often misunderstood as emotionally detached, acknowledged this. They didn't deny feeling, they mastered it. They sought to act from reason, not reaction. To choose kindness when it is not returned is not foolishness. It is discipline. To continue giving when the world stops noticing is not fragility. It is fortitude. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." The Stoic does not give for recognition. He gives because it aligns with who he is. He focuses not on outcomes, but on intention. Kind people like Daniel aren't driven by recognition. They are led by something stronger: principle, character, integrity. They don't seek the applause of others. They seek alignment with what is right. They don't give to impress. They give to embody what they believe. For the Stoic, doing what is right is reward enough. The kindness that persists, even in isolation, is not weakness. It is strength of the highest order. So when the world is silent in return, remember, it is not a sign that you have failed. It is proof that you have remained true to yourself. And that, according to Stoic philosophy, is the only kind of success that matters. If you're still with me, it means something here struck a chord. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe. It helps this message reach others who might need it. And feel free to share your thoughts below. Your voice matters. Kindness can lead to isolation. Here's the paradox. Kindness, the very quality that makes someone shine, can also cast the longest shadow. Think of people who consistently lead with compassion and empathy. They often find themselves walking a lonely road, not because they aren't loved, but precisely because their love is given so freely and effortlessly that it eventually becomes taken for granted. Their kindness becomes routine, drawn from so often, others forget it's even a gift. Even more troubling, this kindness is frequently mistaken for weakness. When someone gives generously and without hesitation, others begin to believe they must not need anything themselves. The assumption becomes that these kind-hearted individuals are always fine, always stable, always available. Yet, hidden behind every thoughtful gesture and every selfless act is an immense amount of emotional labor that often goes unseen. Consider a teacher who stays after school regularly to support struggling students, sacrificing personal time for the well-being of others. Or a parent who quietly manages family stress, continuously absorbing tensions so their loved ones can feel peace. The strength it takes to continue showing up with love, especially when the world responds with indifference, is profound and exhausting. Here's the bitter irony. Those who give the most frequently feel the most isolated. Their generosity becomes an invisible currency, quietly spent day after day, rarely recognized or valued. And for deeply kind individuals, this silence is not merely disappointing, it's deeply isolating. The loneliness they experience intensifies because kind people naturally avoid conflict, not out of fear, but from principle. They understand too well the pain harsh words can cause, the lingering damage unnecessary arguments leave behind. They prefer to absorb discomfort rather than spread it, prioritizing harmony over being right. Yet, in a culture that often equates confrontation with courage and silence with passivity, their thoughtful restraint can be badly misunderstood. Let's be clear. Avoiding conflict is not weakness. It's disciplined compassion. Yet when others misinterpret this kindness as indifference or weakness, it adds another painful layer of isolation to their experience. The silent cost of always saying yes. Over time, a habit of relentless generosity can subtly transform into self-abandonment. What begins as sincere kindness becomes an automatic reflex to say yes to every request at the expense of one's well-being. Consider someone you know, perhaps even yourself, who constantly agrees to extra demands, saying yes to staying late at work again, yes to helping a friend move apartments repeatedly, yes to late-night venting sessions from friends in crisis, yes to everyone's needs except their own. And when these individuals finally muster the courage to ask for help, support, or just acknowledgement, the room often feels painfully empty, not out of malice, but because others have grown accustomed to seeing them as perpetual caregivers, never as people needing care themselves. This dynamic creates a painful cycle. They give and give, yet when it's their turn to receive, they're frequently met with silence or awkward avoidance. Their empathy, initially a beautiful strength, turns into both armor and burden. They become incredibly adept at understanding and excusing bad behavior from others. They rationalize. They're going through something, they don't mean it. This emotional intelligence, while admirable, can also trap them in harmful situations. It becomes justification to remain silent, to tolerate mistreatment, to avoid speaking up out of fear that their honesty might hurt someone else. Yet avoiding conflict to keep others comfortable comes at an immense personal cost. These kind-hearted individuals become misunderstood, undervalued, and sometimes taken advantage of. Their kindness exists like a shadow, constantly present but rarely acknowledged or appreciated. And the longer this continues, the more exhausted they become, emotionally drained, overlooked, and ultimately invisible. As Epictetus taught, no person is free who is not master of himself. To serve others, you must first reclaim yourself. Kind people are not weak. It's time to set the record straight. Kind people, they are not weak. In fact, they are warriors in disguise. They endure silently without applause. They offer compassion freely without expecting anything in return. They hold emotional space for others, even when their own hearts feel heavy. But here's the shift that must happen. Kind individuals must understand that boundaries are not walls. They are windows into self-respect. As Stoic philosophy wisely reminds us, boundaries aren't meant to push people away, but rather to protect what is sacred, your peace, your energy, your soul. Learning to say no isn't harsh or cruel. It's clarity. It's choosing to value your emotional well-being with the same dedication you show to others. There is a graceful way to set these boundaries without losing what makes kind people special. It's called assertive kindness. It involves speaking up with grace, expressing needs empathetically, and drawing clear lines, not to exclude, but to preserve the space where genuine connection and respect can flourish. Kindness isn't weakness, it's power. There is a quiet, unshakable courage in choosing softness in a world that glorifies sharpness. Kindness is not a lack of strength, it is the control of it, a deliberate act of restraint, a daily decision to act from principle rather than impulse, even when the world makes that choice difficult. Consider Mr. Rogers, a man who spoke gently, wore cardigans, and offered patience instead of noise. To some, he seemed too idealistic, too soft. But his strength wasn't in volume, it was in conviction. He stood firm in compassion and transformed cynicism through steady love. Or think of Gandhi, whose non-violence was not passivity, but a form of disciplined defiance. His gentleness was not weakness, it was power, sharpened by purpose, capable of shifting nations. These lives remind us, true strength doesn't seek to overpower, it chooses to endure. It doesn't force change, it invites it. This is the power kind people hold, not because they are immune to pain, but because in the face of it, they choose love over bitterness, grace over retaliation, integrity over ease. And in doing so, they embody what the Stoics taught, that true power is not domination over others, but mastery of self. Solitude is not emptiness, it's sanctuary. There's a misconception that walking alone means being lonely, but many kind people choose solitude not because they fear connection, but because they refuse to settle for noise. They aren't antisocial, they're values-driven. They don't crave attention, they crave authenticity. They're not avoiding people, they're avoiding performance, because in a world obsessed with being seen, kind souls are more concerned with being understood. And in solitude, they discover something society often overlooks: clarity. They find freedom from pretense, a sacred space where they can breathe and think without external pressures. It's a chance to hear their own voice clearly, free from the relentless demand to please others. For kind people, solitude isn't a punishment or something to fear. It's a gift, a vital sanctuary that restores balance and peace to their often misunderstood hearts. Marcus Aurelius captured it beautifully when he wrote, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Kind souls frequently inhabit this peaceful retreat, not to escape reality, but to engage with it more authentically. They step into solitude not as an act of withdrawal, but as a deliberate act of self-care, a moment of gentle rebellion against a world that continuously misunderstands quiet strength and compassion. They choose solitude not because they've given up, but precisely because they wish to return to the world fully replenished, clearer, and genuinely whole. Selective connection. Kindness doesn't mean collecting endless contacts. For kind souls, more has never meant better. They are not drawn to noise or numbers. They seek depth. They seek truth. They'd rather share quiet with one soul who truly sees them than stand in a crowd that only skims the surface. Yes, choosing selective connections might mean moments of loneliness. It means declining invitations and letting certain opportunities pass by if they don't align with their values. It can mean extended periods of quiet reflection while the rest of the world rushes forward. But this deliberate choice also ensures every relationship they nurture is anchored in authenticity and trust. Fewer friends? Possibly. But these friendships are rich with depth, sincerity, and mutual respect. Fewer followers or social circles? Perhaps. But every connection carries profound meaning. For kind individuals, connection isn't measured by quantity, but by the profound impact of genuine understanding, support, and mutual respect. They treasure relationships that go beneath the surface, rooted deeply in authenticity and truth. Final reflection. So here's the truth. Kind people may feel lonely at times, but they are not broken. Their solitude is not emptiness. It is the cost of authenticity. Their boundaries are not rejection. They are declarations of self-respect. And their kindness? It may go unnoticed in the moment, but it leaves a quiet, lasting imprint on every life it touches. To the quiet givers, the gentle listeners, the ones who feel deeply, don't harden. Don't retreat from who you are. Your softness is not weakness. It is a quiet revolution. Let your kindness be a protest against apathy. Let your listening become refuge in a world that shouts. Let your empathy remain your strength, even when it wears you down. Let solitude be your sanctuary, not because you've given up on the world, but because you've chosen peace over performance. Let your boundaries rise, not to keep others out, but to protect the rare and beautiful light within you. Because the world does need what you offer, even if it forgets to say so, even if it takes your absence to remember your worth. If this reflection brought you clarity, share it with someone carrying the quiet weight of kindness. Let this message reach those who need it, but rarely ask for it. And if you'd like more content rooted in Stoic wisdom and emotional strength, subscribe and be part of a community that sees value in softness, stillness, and soul. Stand firm. Guard your peace. And above all, keep going. Keep glowing. Quietly. Powerfully. Exactly as you are.